You know those expressions you hear so often that you don't even question their truth? We've all heard them before.
If you eat a lot of food and then go swimming, you'll get cramps.
Cracking your knuckles can cause arthritis.
We only use 10% of our brain.
You know Joe Scarborough is a Republican.
Or maybe it's Joe Scarborough only uses 10% of his brain. Anyway, there are those sound bites we hear throughout life that get repeated over and over and over again, so often so that they just become the truth, whether they are or not. I've been a bit obsessed with one of these sayings lately. It goes a little something like this.
So you spent a year basically going undercover and doing a lot of jobs that I think you could argue a lot of Americans wouldn't do.
Immigrant workers do the jobs Americans refuse to do.
Immigrants are a way to basically take care of those jobs that Americans do not want.
They take jobs that Americans largely are not doing.
Would Americans really want to do those jobs?
Hispanics and Africans taking what are pretty tough, dirty, rough jobs because others don't want them.
Once it's put on your radar, you hear it all the time. But is it true? Do illegal immigrants really just do the jobs Americans won't do? I'm Patrick Courrielche, and this is Red Pilled America, a new storytelling show. This is not another talk show covering the day's news. We're all about telling stories. Stories Hollywood doesn't want you to hear. Stories the media mocks. Stories about everyday Americans that the elites ignore. You could think of Red Pilled America as audio documentaries, and we promise only one thing. The truth. Welcome to Red Pilled America. So the idea for this episode came a few years back when Kelly Osbourne made a comment on The View.
If you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that,
no.
You know what I mean? Like when I'm saying
there's more jobs to be
in LA, they always...
Kelly made the comment during the 2016 election, and it caused a minor uproar. She apologized, but it made me realize I heard a version of that comment many, many times before. So much so that I began to take it for granted. But then I began to think about it. Is this true? Do illegal immigrants really do the jobs Americans won't do? I started a little digging to find the answer, and it led me to some guys from Long Island. What I learned was eye-opening because what happened to them could easily happen to just about anyone. Suffolk County is not a household name to people who haven't lived in New York. About 80 miles east of Manhattan and Long Island, the area advertises itself as the leading agricultural county in New York State, with a farming community that has survived hundreds of years of development. But as unfamiliar as the name may be to most, the county includes one of the most well-known regions in the world, the Hamptons, the vacation stomping ground for the rich and famous. Like most affluent neighborhoods throughout the country, the haves are separated from the have-nots by a kind of barrier, and in the Hamptons, that barrier is New York 27, a highway that connects Brooklyn to the eastern tip of Long Island. The haves live south of that road. Tom Waddell grew up in an area just north of the highway, in a city called Manorville. A stocky, medium-height Long Islander of Scottish descent, Tom is 57, but with the head of hair of a teenager. Although he lived within walking distance of the well-to-do, he was anything but.
I come from a family of 10, 5 girls, 5 boys.
Wow.
Yeah, we come from a farm stand family. I actually...
From the time Tom was born until their passing, his mother and father ran a farm stand in West Babylon, a town just north of the highway and west of the Hamptons. His mom and dad would buy fruits and vegetables from local farmers and sold them through the stand. Like many working-class families, they would put their kids to work. By the time Tom was old enough to carry a box, he was part of the farm stand crew.
It was one of the biggest on the island. And I worked on that farm stand up until the time I was 17 years old, and then I realized I could get a job and get paid.
Tom got his first paycheck when he caught wind that the father of a friend needed some help doing landscaping out in the Hamptons. At 17, he called the guy and got the job.
I started working out east. I started doing, landscaping and stuff around houses in a development. And I worked my way up. And I got good enough at doing what I was doing. They let me do some more. I did some carpentry. I did everything. I did whatever needed to be done.
It wasn't long until Tom broke out on his own. He'd become a small business owner, a big step for a guy that came from a working-class family of 10, selling tomatoes from the age he could walk. He slowly built his crew, at one point up to a team of 25 guys, working on multi-million-dollar estates.
Construction. Yeah, I had a construction company, building houses. I did everything. We did everything right from the ground up, Right from they'd come and pour the foundations, and we'd do everything else.
Most of Tom's crew was made up of young guys, including George Overbeck, who would handle a specific part of the construction job.
Like I said, I specialized in cedar, so I always did high-end work. We're talking about $1 million homes, and $30,000, $40,000, $60,000, cedar roofs or siding.
The two became good friends, not surprising given their upbringings. Both were Long Island natives, both from humble beginnings.
This is where I came from. I was 6. My sister was 4. My father had a heart attack and died. The only one that raised me was my mother. At the time, she was just an aide, basically working, to take care of people and stuff of that nature. But she didn't have a lot of money. We basically lived off the system in a sense. My whole entire life, I remember getting free lunch. And, just hard times from the beginning to the end.
George grew up in Hampton Bays, a village just west of the popular luxury vacation spot Southampton, in a building that he said more resembled a chicken coop than an apartment complex. His family lived the kind of a lifestyle where you'd be eating good on the second day of the month, but by the third, things started getting tight again. George never had his own room. He slept on the couch in the living room, which doubled as the entrance room and the TV room. Their kitchen had a bar that was made out of a door, and that was their table. You get the picture. As a kid, George would walk down to the local grocery store called King Cullen right before closing time.
There was a gentleman, a manager at King Cullen in Hampton Bays when I was a kid, and he knew how poor we were. He knew we didn't have any money. And I used to go there like 8 o'clock at night when the store was about to shut, and, he would give me, bags of groceries and stuff. So I would go and collect all the carts, and sometimes I'd sweep the floors or whatever, but he would give me bags of groceries, and I would take them home, and,
When he got old enough, at the ripe old age of 12, he started looking for a job. George lived down the road from a burger joint in Hampton Bays called Slow Jack's. It looks kind of like a throwback to the days when you'd drive up and a waitress would walk up to your car and take your order.
So when I was 12, I went over there, and I got a job cleaning the parking lot before school. And then during the summer times, I would work cleaning the parking lot. And then when I became 14, I started working like miniature golf course, which he has in the back, and started like a counter guy. I never got to cook, of course, but...
Living like this grows you up quick. So at 16, George decided it was time to get a real job. He dropped out of school and moved to a town called Riverhead, which was on the other side of Long Island, and started working for a landscaping company, basically cutting the lawns of estates. By the time he was 18, his younger sister started dating a guy whose father owned a cedar roofing company and was looking for guys to work. He offered George a job, and that was his entry into the construction business. He'd later start working for Tom Waddell, but by the year 2000, for his New Year's resolution, he decided to start his own roofing company. As the year 2001 came around, both Tom and George, guys who started with nothing, who'd worked manual labor jobs at the age when they should have been riding a bike, had hustled and scratched their way out of poverty to become successful small business owners.
I had many guys working for me. I had a good-sized company. I worked for a lot of prestigious builders out here on the east end of Long Island, from East Hampton to Bridgehampton to Southampton. And, I was doing quite a few jobs, we were probably banging out a house a month or something. and everything was profitable, and everybody was doing the right thing, and I was happy about my company, and everything was great.
Tom was in a similar place.
And I was busy. I had my guys working. Everything was good. Bought a lot of equipment. Everything was rolling good. My business was growing. My guys were working hard. Everybody was happy. The jobs were going good.
They were living the American dream. But what happened next changed all that forever. More after the break. With all the recent internet security breaches, it's time to start protecting yourself online. Making an online purchase or simply accessing your email could put your private information at risk. And we all know we're being tracked online by the tech giants. Not only can they record your browsing history, but they often sell it to corporations who want to profit from your information. That's why I decided to protect my privacy by using ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN has easy-to-use apps that secures your internet browsing by encrypting your data and hiding your public IP address. ExpressVPN's #1 rated apps run seamlessly in the background of your computer, phone, and tablet, and cost under $7 a month. So if you don't want these tech giants knowing everywhere you go online, and you want to keep hackers from stealing your login information, ExpressVPN is the answer. Protect your online activity right now, and find out how you can get 3 months free at expressvpn.com/RPA. That's expressvpn.com/RPA for 3 months free with a 1-year package. Visit expressvpn.com/RPA to learn more.
Now back to Red Pilled America.
Welcome back. I'm Patrick Courrielche. In the classic big screen thrillers, the villain often uses a pretty sick tactic to control his enemy. He secretly plants a ticking time bomb that threatens innocent lives. This twisted, revenge-seeking monster then sends a warning note that finds its way to the desk of a barely sober cop. We watch as this flawed hero goes from location to location, trying frantically to piece together the puzzle, eventually leading him to a crowded train station at rush hour. People roam the terminal, clueless to the potential terror attack, as the now battered hero sees a beat-up leather briefcase through the crowd off in the distance. As the bomb ticks dangerously closer to zero, this disheveled, out-of-breath officer shoves people out of the way in a mad dash against time. The hero first fumbles, but ends up entering the right code to unlock the latch, and then carefully, hand trembling, reaches into the bag to pull out the green wire just in the nick of time. In the end, countless lives are saved. This act of terrorism is demented, but at least the villain gives his would-be victims a chance to survive. Back in the real world, many think a kind of ticking time bomb has been planted throughout America, put there by men with power looking to acquire even more of it. But unlike on the big screen, no clue is sent to the hero to find the bomb. There is no puzzle to solve that saves the day. The villain actually wants the bomb to go off. And when it does, it destroys American lives. That's what Tom Waddell said happened to him.
Boom, one day, all of a sudden, your guys are gone. I didn't understand. All of a sudden, one night, it was like I was destroyed in one night. I was destroyed. My government was not supposed to do that to me. That's not right. It's not fair.
The ticking time bomb went off for Tom about a week before September 11th, 2001. At the time, he was about halfway through a 3-year job on an estate in Sagaponack, a village in Southampton. He remembers that day well.
Yeah, it was in the morning. My guys had just started showing up. We were all, we usually had a little meeting spot down by the a barn that you usually came to first when you came down the driveway. We all met at the barn. And I dispersed my guys off. They were doing their thing, working on various parts of the house. And I guess, about 2 hours after we started, the builder came. His name was Rich, and he had the homeowner with him. And he didn't have a happy face on him, and I was like, what's going on, Rich? He said, we have a problem, Tom. I said, well, what's up? And he said, I got a problem with the homeowner. She doesn't like how much she's paying for these guys.
Rich explained that the homeowner was going to replace Tom's guys with her own guys. Tom was being fired. He pleaded for them to reconsider. He spent about $250,000 on equipment to build his company, and had 25 guys who thought they had work for the next 18 months.
I said, Rich, man, I've been working on this job for a year and a half. There's still over a year and a half left to go on this project. You can't just let me go like that. I said, how long have we been together? He said, there's nothing I can do about this, Tom. The homeowner wants it, she wants to bring her guys in here. There's nothing I can do about it, Tom. And it was it. That was the end of my, I didn't know what to say to the guy. I really didn't know what to say to him. I was dumbfounded. I thought I'd get a couple of days, to get my equipment out of there, because, like I said, I've been on the job for a year and a half. I had a lot of equipment over there. And I got there the next day to take my stuff off the job begrudgingly, and lo and behold, there's 20 guys on the job, all Latinos, and they're using my equipment. It was the most insulting thing I'd ever seen in my life. I couldn't believe it. Not only were they stealing my job, but they were using my equipment. I was just, I was dumbfounded. I just started grabbing my equipment, and they were jumping off it as I was grabbing my stuff. I was pissed. I was really mad. But I got my equipment, and I put my tail between my legs, and I left, and I just tried to carry on, I tried to keep my guys working. I tried to get other jobs. I got a couple little ones here and there, but nothing that could sustain 25 guys working. Nothing.
The firing started a spiral for Tom.
I struggled for a long time trying to find work. I couldn't support my guys. I had 25 guys working for me at the time, feeding their families, paying their taxes, doing the right thing. I was trying to do the right thing, and then boom, all of a sudden that hit. I'm struggling. I'm coming out east every day, trying to find work, trying to keep me going, trying to keep my guys going. And over a couple of years, I just kept losing guys, and it got to the point where I had nobody left. It was just me struggling, trying to make it, trying to live. So I lost half the equipment. It ruined my entire life. It really destroyed my life.
Tom saw no warning signs that the bomb was about to go off. He did slowly notice some Spanish-speaking workers on some of the jobs, but he really didn't pay any attention to it, and why should he have? He was busy. His guys were busy. But over the course of a few years after losing that big job, he started to put two and two together. Every day he'd drive out east looking for work, passing a 7-Eleven at the entry point to Southampton.
I'm looking at that 7-Eleven. I pass it every day. There's 200 guys, 300 guys lined up there every day, up and down the sidewalks, all looking for work. That answered my question of where all my work went to. These guys were stealing my work. They hire these guys for really cheap. They pay no comp. They pay no liability. I had to pay all that stuff.
These guys being illegal aliens. And there were a lot of them. Suffolk County had been dealing with an influx of illegal immigrants for a few years. In the late 90s, when about 1,500 Mexicans made their way to Farmingville, a tiny village in Suffolk County, it sent the small community into chaos. Neighbors began seeing 20 and 30 illegal immigrants occupying a single home and aggregating at a local 7-Eleven looking for work. Local residents complained of harassment and unruly behavior by these new invaders. Then an illegal immigrant killed a single mother while driving drunk, disappearing after making bail. But it wasn't until a few of these day laborers were beaten up by some outsiders that it began to attract the attention of the media. The people of Farmingville were successful in blocking a city-sanctioned hiring hall for the illegal immigrants, but the problem only seemed to spread to other parts of Suffolk County. Paul Forthmuller, a local at the time, explained why so many illegal immigrants were flocking to the area.
Yes, now, the explanation is this. You have a lot of rich people out there with their park-like house grounds and mansions and so on. And these people, they want to have their grounds taken care of, but they don't want to spend the money to employ the correct people, American citizens. So they would always give the job to the cheapest guy.
After first finding agricultural and landscaping work, the illegal immigrants eventually infiltrated other areas: painting, carpentry, and general construction. They began to change the economics of the town in other ways too. Already an expensive place to live, the day laborers made it even more expensive. When word of work in the richest enclave in America started to spread, illegal immigrants came out in droves, setting up hubs. First they'd make enough money to rent a house, then bring in 15, 20, 30 guys to live there, each paying, say, $50 a week. If a landlord had the choice between a small family paying, say, $2,000 a month in rent and 20 guys paying much, much more than that, which way do you think the landlord is going to go? It's not rocket science to figure out the answer. Locals say the illegal immigrants drove up rental prices in the area enough so that a single working-class family, now unable to find work, couldn't afford the rent. It wasn't long before the illegal immigrants started to enter other areas of construction. That's when the bomb hit George.
Like I said, I specialized in theater, so I always did high-end work, and it just slowly but surely, every time, I'd put a bid on a job with another builder, they would turn around and they would try to budge my price and use them as a wedge, this free, cheap labor,
The labor obviously wasn't free, but they definitely worked for cheaper, much cheaper.
It was hard for me to compete with that. And as slowly as I went from 15 to 10 to 6 to 4 to 2 guys, there was no way to keep up. There was no way to compete. It was impossible to compete because the Army was vast and I was just a small company. So I basically started just slowly losing everything. And when I hit rock bottom, I contributed to one factor only. The fact of free labor, cheap labor. Maybe not free, but cheap labor.
Like many of the local workers, in early 2006, George left the state hoping to find construction work elsewhere. But when he got to Tennessee, he was shocked at what he learned. More after the break. Support for Red Pilled America comes from Stamps.com, your 24/7 personal post office right at your desk.
I'm always super busy producing this show, and the holidays add to my time crunch. That's why we use Stamps.com. It saves us so much time during the hectic holiday season. Everything you can do from your local post office can be done from your desk using Stamps.com, your computer, and a printer. You can buy and print official U.S. postage from your computer for any letter and any package. And the best part is you don't need to leave the office to do it. Once your letters or packages are ready to go, you can simply hand them off to your postal carrier. It couldn't be easier. And with Stamps.com, you get discounts on postage you can't even get at the post office. Stamps.com is providing a special offer to Red Pilled America listeners. You get a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale without long-term commitments. Go to Stamps.com right now, then click on the radio microphone at the top of the homepage and type in the promo code RED to receive the special offer. That's Stamps.com and enter RED.
Now back to the story. So like many of the local Suffolk County workers, in early 2006, George left the state hoping to find construction work elsewhere. He went down south. It only lasted 2 months.
So, to make a long story short, I came back, and it turns out that Tennessee was no different than New York or Long Island. Everywhere you go, it was the same story.
The so-called day laborers were already in other states. But what was most troubling was that Tom and George were experiencing this work shortage in one of the biggest housing booms in history. House prices increased from 2000 to the summer of 2006 more than they did in the previous 2 decades. It wasn't as if there was some downturn in the economy that was forcing demand for cheaper wages. They also weren't working in a town that was particularly cash poor. In fact, it was the exact opposite of that. Last year, BusinessInsider.com listed Sagaponack. That was the town that Tom and his crew lost their jobs to day laborers. That town was listed as the #1 wealthiest zip code in America, with a median house selling at $8.5 million. The wealthiest zip code in the wealthiest country in the history of the world during the biggest economic boom in an industry had to find cheaper illegal labor. Illegal immigration has changed the face of working class America, literally, and nowhere is that better illustrated than in construction. California is the canary in the coal mine for how illegal immigration will affect the American working class throughout the country. In 1980, the percentage of Latinos working in construction in Los Angeles County was 24%. By 2015, that number had almost tripled to 70% Latino, an incredible shift in the workforce, and it's largely attributed to illegal immigration. These are the kinds of jobs that have historically lifted Americans out of poverty. And this wasn't the only shift in the industry. From the early 1970s to 2016, American construction workers' wages have declined by almost 20%. For all of the talk that immigration creates prosperity in America, the Golden State completely debunks that myth. Even with industries like Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and aerospace titans like SpaceX, California is now the poverty capital of the U.S. Los Angeles has seen a 75% surge in homelessness over the past 6 years. San Francisco even has maps to avoid the feces of the homeless. And reliable Republican enclaves like Orange County have been faced with this problem as well, with residents of Irvine, California recently organizing to block the erection of tent cities for the homeless in their town. What this massive influx of illegal immigration has done is increase the wealth gap, providing near slave labor to the world's richest populations, all while driving down wages and in some cities closing off a major pathway out of poverty for America's working class. This is what Tom Waddell and George Overbeck faced when they came back together in 2006. Around that time, Tom Waddell protested a chemical fertilizer plant and successfully shut it down. So when George and him started talking about what could be done to deal with all the illegal immigrants lining up at the Southampton 7-Eleven stealing their work, it was obvious what they should do.
I went out there with a bunch of kids one day. They said, how can we do something about this? I said, make some signs up and we'll go protest. And so they did. We went down the basement, bought a bunch of crayons, a bunch of paint, made some signs up, went out to protest just for a weekend.
We want our jobs back, Mark. Americans want their jobs back.
Tom, like most of us, was taught that if you have any gripe with the government, you should peacefully protest. And this seemed like the perfect opportunity. I mean, these day laborers were here illegally, right? It was illegal to hire them too, right? The government was doing nothing about the problem. It was a slam dunk. So they grabbed the signs and headed out to the 7-Eleven. But when they got out to protest, they learned a new lesson.
I gotta know where I can stand and where I can't. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Where can I stand, where can I not stand? Run me around here like
harassing the customers, please.
We're not harassing the customers.
I never did.
Instead of questioning the illegal immigrants lined up on the sidewalks in the hundreds, the cops turned their focus on the protesters.
All because we were standing on a sidewalk. They have 1, 2, 3. How many police cars are here because we were standing on the same sidewalk that all these illegal aliens are standing on?
All right, you know what? I try to be nice, but guess what? You're under arrest. Yeah,
They're arresting an American citizen for walking across the street.
And as soon as we started protesting, the police showed up. They started taking our license plate numbers down after they found out what we were protesting about. They took our license numbers down. They ran background checks on everybody that was protesting. Just me and a bunch of kids. It really made me mad that they were doing that, you know? And here these guys are standing on the side of the road stealing everybody's work. They don't even belong here. Not one of them could produce identification if he tried. And it makes me mad. I see these guys breaking the law. Here I am trying to obey the law, trying to do the right thing, trying to keep my guys working, trying to keep their families fed. And here's my government telling me, shut up, don't do nothing. You can't do nothing about it. These guys are here. That's it. Get used to it. It really made me mad. So that's when I was determined. Right after that, I said that I'm not going to stop. I guess I got to stay out here until people recognize what's going on here.
Tom and George became fixtures at that Southampton 7-Eleven. The place was such a hot spot that the 7-Eleven received an award for selling the most cups of coffee in the United States. And Tom in particular was out there so often, he became kind of a poster child for illegal immigration in the area. He took the fight to the businesses and politicians supporting the day laborers. So many illegal immigrants were lined up on the street looking for work that the city tried something provocative. They started to make a drive-through hiring location on city-owned property.
The whole situation was not created in Southampton. It's not going to be settled on a street corner in Southampton. It's far larger than you and me and anybody else.
And I just clear this problem up. I mean, we wouldn't have to be here. I don't want to be here. These people don't want to be here.
Just take pictures of the contractors picking up instead of building them a hiring hall.
So, anyway, it turns out that the field next to 7-Eleven. They were going to go and turn around and have a hiring hall, and they were going to make it a place where they were going to cut a curb, and they were going to put a U driveway and a couple trailers, and basically contractors like me and all these other guys could walk in and say, oh, I'll take 4 guys, or I'll take 3 guys, or whatever, and drive in and drive out like a McDonald's, like some type of a work McDonald's.
Tom remembers that day as well.
They tried to build it. They tried to dig out the holes and get the driveway built. And one day, me and my buddy George pulled up, and they were digging it. I stepped right out of the truck and into the hole.
I'll never forget this. They were cutting the curb in the road, and they were putting the U in the hiring hall area. And my buddy jumped out of my car, and I mean, we didn't even stop to park. He jumped out of the car, and he jumped in the hole, and there was this machine, this backhoe, and the backhoe driver turns around and spins around to get another piece of dirt, and there's my buddy Tommy in the hole. And he's like, you're done here. You're done. You're not cutting this. This is not going to happen. It's over. You're not doing it.
The site ended up getting shut down for misuse of city property. The hiring hall never opened, but Tom was arrested in the process. It was one of many times.
I had a real bad time over there. I had a real bad time. They arrested me like 4 times on the word of the illegal aliens, just saying that I was standing too close to them. They didn't like my flag. My flag would brush up against them as they were walking by, and they'd call the cops on me and have me arrested, and they would arrest me. It steeled my resolve. Every time they did that, it just made me have to stay longer. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to be out here every day. I had to count up change. Some mornings to make it out there with gas. It cost me around $7 a day to make it there and back on gas. Sometimes I'd just coast.
Tom and George did win the battle. They shut down the hiring hall, but they are losing the war. The illegal immigrants in Suffolk County are now firmly planted in the community.
Basically, nothing has changed. They don't have a location to do their thing except on the sides of the roads like they normally do and like they'll always do. But, the thing that has changed is, they've come a long way, my friend. They're not, cutting the grass. They're telling that guy over there to cut the grass. You know what I'm saying? Nothing has changed except they don't have the steady location. But they don't even need it anymore because the bosses are them.
With guys like Tom and George and millions of others losing their jobs to these day laborers, how did this phrase, that illegal immigrants do the jobs Americans won't do, become so widely repeated? Well, the day laborers had their own idea, and they shared it with Tom.
They laughed in my face. They told me, get the hell out of here. George Bush already gave us your country. There's nothing you can do about it. That's what the illegals told me. Get the hell out of here. George Bush already gave us your country.
George W. Bush no doubt played a role in spreading the message. He was one of the leaders that popularized the phrase.
Out of common sense and fairness, our laws should allow willing workers to enter our country and fill jobs that Americans are not filling, or jobs American citizens are not filling. If an American employer is offering a job that American citizens are not willing to take,
That you can do work others aren't doing.
jobs Americans are not doing,
For jobs Americans won't do. And work here illegally for jobs Americans aren't doing.
that you cannot fully enforce the border so long as people are trying to sneak in this country to do jobs Americans aren't doing.
But the phrase has been used widely by both political parties, possibly more so by Democrats. We are told time and time again, almost like an advertising slogan attempting to sell us something we don't need, that illegal immigrants only do the jobs Americans won't do. But the facts tell a different story.
We can actually look to find the occupations where there are no Americans working, right? So it turns out that you can't find them.
That's Dr. Steve Camarota, Director of Research at the Center for Immigration Studies. He actually tested this argument by looking at occupational data captured by the federal government.
So if you were to look total at the total number of occupations identified by the Department of Congress, there are 472 of them. Only 6 are majority immigrant. And even in those 6, 46% of the workers are still U.S. born. So maids and housekeepers in America, you might think, well, gosh, that must be all foreign born. It's not. It's 51% native born. And there are 850,000 native born Americans who do that job. 58% of taxi drivers and chauffeurs are U.S. born, 63% of butchers and meat processors, 64% of ground maintenance workers, and 73% of janitors are U.S. born. So the vast majority of janitors are U.S. born. But we still say things like, that's a job Americans won't do.
This is why the claim that illegal immigrants only do the jobs Americans won't do is so sinister. Our politicians have the data. They know the truth. Tom and George got their start in the working class through manual labor, working in farming, sweeping parking lots, cutting lawns, trimming hedges, then getting a break and working their way up in the construction business to become small business owners, only to have it all taken away by the guys just doing the jobs Americans won't do. Our leaders, especially the Democrats, continue to allow this ticking time bomb of cheap labor to enter the country because it gives them more power, especially in the near future when the new voting population comes of age. The change in public school enrollment in the Hamptons area highlights this point. In Bridgehampton, public school enrollment went from 6.8% Hispanic in 2000 to 41% in 2017. In East Hampton, it went from 18.5% to 51%. In Hampton Bays, where George grew up, it went from 16.1% Hispanic to 55% Hispanic. And in one Southampton school, north of the highway in the land of the have-nots, the school enrollment went from 10.5% Hispanic in 2000 to 71% in 2017. And this is just one of many, many towns across America going through the same invasion of illegal immigrants. Suffolk County sensed the serious problem and in 2016 voted for a Republican for president for the first time since George H.W. Bush. Tom wasn't surprised when it went Trump's way.
Oh my God, if you would have seen all the people that were for Trump when I held that Trump sign out there in Southampton, I had more support than you can imagine. I knew he was going to win. When everybody was saying he was going to lose, I knew he was going to win.
Tom stopped protesting 3 days after Trump was elected and is hopeful that the president will be able to enforce our immigration laws. Things have not been easy for Tom since the days of his protesting. He's had a hard time finding work ever since, and his living arrangements aren't steady.
I'm renting a house right now that I can't even afford to rent. I'm almost out of this house now. But I've been going through houses that the people have been in foreclosure. And that's the way I lived for the last 15 years. I've been going from one abandoned house to another, one foreclosed house to another.
George was forced out of the roofing business, but his painting work has picked up since Trump's election. He is also hopeful that the president will be able to enforce our immigration laws. And he's a guy that you can say puts his money where his mouth is. His wife was a Polish immigrant to the United States. They had a son. Then her visa expired. George decided he needed to practice what he preached. He sent his wife and son back to Europe to enter the country legally. But because she overstayed her visa by a month, they couldn't immigrate to the United States for 5 years. So George packed up and moved to Europe with his wife, where they had 2 more boys, eventually coming back to the United States after 5 years. He hopes our president is able to enforce the same immigration law that was forced on his family.
I voted for Trump, and we stopped basically doing what we were doing because of the fact is that we felt like when we voted for Trump that we'd have a leader that was going to take care of this. And he wants to, and he's going to, but there's so many obstructionists, so many people on the wrong side of this coin that are stopping, and affecting us, the American people, because I'll tell you, I'm angry still about it. And I'm about to go back out because I don't want to become complacent and say, well, I voted for Trump and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to be like that.
It's probably not a bad idea for guys like George and Tom to give Trump a little nudge, because illegal immigrants are still taking jobs from the American working class. Which brings us back to the question, do illegal immigrants just do the jobs Americans won't do? The answer is clearly no. But if this slogan, because that's what it is, a slogan, is repeated over and over and over again like a well-funded advertising campaign, it can infect even the strongest minds.
The biggest problem is that you have some great, wonderful people coming in from Mexico that are working the crops, they're working cutting lawns, they're doing a lot of jobs, and I'm not sure that a lot of Americans are going to take those jobs. And that's the dichotomy. That's the big problem, because you have a lot of great people coming in, doing a lot of work, and I'm not so sure that a lot of other people are going to be doing that work.
Red Pilled America is an iHeartRadio original podcast. It's produced by Patrick Courrielche and me, Adryana Cortez, for Inform Ventures. We dedicate this episode to Ann Coulter and Rebecca Mansour. To hear the story behind the story, please consider becoming a Backstage subscriber to listen to exclusive behind-the-scene clips. To subscribe, visit redpilledamerica.com and click the support button in the top menu. That's redpilledamerica.com and click support in the top menu. Thanks for listening.